and you are listening to Kauai Community Radio. Thanks for tuning in today, and it is now time for Stay Safe Kauai, and that is a show put on by myself, Radio Annie, and my co-host Jill Lowry from the Kauai Resilience Center, which was also part of Idaho Community Park. And I want to let you know that Stay Safe Kauai is made possible by KKCR's sustaining members in partnership with Kauai Marine and Mower and the Swell Shave Ice.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the speaker and do not necessarily represent those of KKCR staff, board, members, volunteers, or underwriters.
And thanks for tuning in to Kauai Community Radio. Again, this is Stay Safe Kauai, and this is a program where we talk about emergency management, disaster preparedness and response, and ways that we ourselves can keep ourselves and our neighbors and our ohana safe on Kauai. And it's presented by myself. I'm Annie. I'm the general manager here at Kauai Community Radio, and also my co-host Jill Lowry, and she is from the Kauai Resilience Center. And we have some very special guests with us today, joining us via Zoom, and they're going to give us a lot of information on fire safety and what we can expect from this fire season. We have Beth Amaro from KIUC, and we also have Chief Gibson from Kauai Fire Department and his assistant chief, Ka'eo Kinoshito. And we're very happy to have both of those folks, all these folks with us here today. And Jill, do you want to introduce our guests properly?
No, I think you did a good job. We'll let them kind of take it away, but I want to double down on what you said, Annie. It's really exciting to have our guests here today because obviously Lahaina is still in the rearview mirror in pretty clear order, and our summers are drier, and both KIUC and KFD are hugely important factors in our community to keep us safe. And I look forward to hearing what everybody has to say. Obviously we also have 4th of July, which is a little scary too, in dry weather. So helping our community learn what they can do at home to help protect starting a fire, especially during those really sensitive times, will be helpful too. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike and Ka'eo to kind of talk a little bit about who they are, the roles that they play, and then I'd like Beth to do the same, and then we'll get right into questions. Ka'eo, do you want to start?
Hi, good morning. Small correction, I'm prevention captain for the Kauai Fire Department. Our main roles is part of what we do is we do plan reviews, commercial and residential. We do fire inspections of commercial businesses. We do public education, and as well as fire investigations and a bunch of other miscellaneous duties and processes. Thanks for having us. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for talking on KKCR.
Chief Gibson, anything you want to add to that?
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Jill. And we're glad everybody is interested today. We're grateful for this opportunity and for everyone committing their time and efforts to make Kauai a fire safer community. Yes, we did have a bit of rainfall recently, and coming into the drier season, we know that green grass is going to turn into a fuel load. And so we just want everybody to we can get into it further, but it's a community-wide effort. We all need to take our part from our own small residents and the homes and lands we live on, clear the hazard brush, and we could talk about as we get in there, but early detection is the key for us. Fires reported early, signs of smoke early, and we're doing things with technology to help us as well. And we can talk about that a little bit later too.
Thanks, Chief. And Beth, I know sitting on the advisory committee for KIUC, you've got a lot of things coming up and efforts that you're doing to also keep people energized during disasters, but safely as well. Do you want to give us a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I think just personally, I really want to thank you for the opportunity to talk about this because it's really, really important to all of us in every role we play in our lives. I just thinking back, I moved to Kauai 32 years ago, and 4 months later, Hurricane Iniki hit. And we lost our house and, just lived through that disaster as a citizen. And then a couple of years later, I went to work for the County of Kauai, where I worked from 94 to 2015 in various roles, and I have spent many, many hours in the EOC, with many disasters and situations over the years. And now at KIUC, I'm the Member Services and Communications Manager here. And so again, at KIUC, as you mentioned, we obviously manage very critical infrastructure here on the island, all of our electric utility infrastructure. And it's very, very important that we are always prepared for any type of disaster that might come our way. And, my role in that, in a large part, is keeping the community informed. It's important to do during a disaster, but this is priceless to be able to talk ahead of time and help people really be prepared, because that is the key to riding through a disaster, is to be prepared ahead of time. So yeah, thank you for this opportunity, Jill.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also important to mention too that our show is not about scaring people or putting this fear of doom and gloom or anything, but it is about protection, and it is about caring, and it's about kindness, and it's about caring, and it's about really being aware of what's around us, because we cannot always rely on our government. We rely on ourselves, we rely on our neighbors, and we can take things in our hands to make things better for ourselves. So thanks for teaching us how we can do that today.
Yeah, Annie, I think that's an important message all the way around with public health and safety as our own responsibilities, as we have control over them. Obviously, we don't have control over everything, but generally and I'm guilty too, there's more I could be doing at home, in prevention of a hurricane, et cetera. And so surrounded by my neighbor's guinea grass right now. I'm particularly sensitive to this conversation. But I'm going to lob the first question at Beth. Can you give us just a little information about what plans you actually have in place? Kind of give an overview so our listeners can understand what KIUC is actually doing.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. I mean, we obviously, wildfires came onto the radar screen in a big way last year, but, emergency preparedness has always been part of what we do, including for high wind events. I think kind of the cornerstone of our emergency preparedness is what is called our Emergency Preparedness and Recovery Plan. It's a plan that has to be submitted to the Public Utilities Commission every year. We started doing this upon their request in 2006. It's a 500-page document. It's very expansive. It covers any number of types of disasters that we might encounter and how we would respond, including a crisis communications plan. So we have to keep that updated every year for the PUC. In addition to that, a number of years ago, we developed a specific hurricane playbook, we call it, which is, specifically what we do to respond to hurricanes, and that we update every year and we exercise every year internally. We also, there's cyber threats, so cybersecurity is big. We have a cybersecurity response and recovery plan. We have a new wildfire mitigation plan, which we started working on last September, and we've just adopted it. It's up on our website for anybody who maybe wants to take a look at that. It's definitely, all of these are living documents that we exercise on regularly, and we amend as needed as we get new information and new technology and tools to prepare for and deal with emergencies. The latest one now is a natural hazard mitigation plan that the Public Utilities Commission has asked us to develop and submit to them by August. It'll be probably an overarching document that'll sort of tie all of these other plans together and guide us as we deal with any number of natural hazards. So yeah, we've got a lot of planning tools out there, and we do practice them. And a really key part of those for me in my role is, the public communication, which, is important while something's happening, but also important before, in preparation.
And we can find these documents at KIUC. Is it .coop or is it .org?
.coop, C-O-O-P.
Okay.
Not all of them are up there. Like, for example, so there's this fine line we run between giving too much information, because there are bad actors out there, right? So there are things that we really don't disclose publicly about our infrastructure because there are people who could sabotage it. The wildfire mitigation plan is up on the website, though, and I would encourage you. We do have a page devoted to wildfire preparedness. Should be pretty easy to find there, and there's a link to our plan. And when you look at that, it's similarly laid out to many of our other plans, and especially the communication pieces are similar to what we have in our other plans. Although wildfire is a little bit different, and I won't go into that in detail now, but we can talk about that. Wildfire, unfortunately, gives us very little lead time to communicate. So it's a little bit different than maybe a hurricane that might give us a week or so to help get people prepared.
Thanks, Beth. I'm going to toss the ball now to KFD, and maybe you guys can do similarly and talk about your plans that you're working on going into this fire season.
Yes, we can. So what I said earlier about early fire detection is the United States Fire Administration is supporting a new program with using artificial intelligence. They provided us with these sensors. These sensors can be placed in remote areas. They just look like a little mini weather station. They have their solar charged, and it can detect fire from 1 to 3 miles away. And we're part of a test bed for them. They want us to deploy, up to 1, 3, or 5 in an area, see how many that it takes to read a certain area. And these sensors talk to each other. They become smarter as time goes along. They are already programmed to only pick up on wildfire or wildland type components that would burn. So if it would know the difference between a cigarette smoking or a car driving through the area, but it will pick up at the earliest stage of a fire. So we're going to be deploying these sensors in some areas in Poipu, Anahola. We're trying to get some out in the Kauai, Waimea area, and then also behind the airport. And then the second thing for us is from early notification is a quick, heavy response. So at the onset of a report of a brush fire, we're dispatching additional resources. We had the fire last week in Waimea, started about 3 in the morning. And so that's before all the bulldozer operators are awake and the helicopters are operating. But our battalion chiefs arrived, got all those calls made early. So as soon as the sun rose, we had plenty of personnel out there. And it was still a pretty large fire, ended up being about 300 acres total. But the ability to get the resources on the road early and to be able to overwhelm the fire at its earliest opportunity made the difference. Another thing that we do, if we have an advisory, if it's red flag warning or high wind conditions, that gives us a little bit of time to fortify our staffing in our fire stations. So I guess I can give an overview of that. We have 8 fire stations for the county of Kauai. We try to staff each one with a minimum of 4 firefighters every day. There are times we have to drop down to 3 just because of manpower shortages. But those days when we have the red flag warnings, that gives us the ability to call in people and supplant with overtime and put extra people on the outlier stations, Waimea, Hanalei for us so that we're spread out. And additional resources, we've had great support from our mayor and our county council and the other departments fortifying our budget. We currently have, in our fire stations, a typical fire engine has about 750 gallons of water on it. We have our smaller brush trucks that only carry 200 gallons. There's another apparatus we use, it's our water tender. We only have one currently. It is in Lihue, but it has 2,000 gallons of water, which makes a huge resource availability to our trucks on the scene. And we've got funding to buy 2 more. So we have 2 that'll be coming, so we can spread them out strategically across the island. Our other plans include increasing the size of our brush trucks from the 200-gallon carrying to 400-gallon with a more durable, better off-road frame so we can get out to the fires, deeper, access them better. It's those fires on the, the steep terrains and slopes. If they're harder to get to, for one, that fire is burning faster. And if we can't access it, we're just going to be chasing something that's going to get bigger and bigger. So the further we can get in there with more water, we can be a little more effective. And before I ramble, we pass it to Kaio to see if he can summarize any of that.
Oh, no. Great job, Chief. Just to add to, I just learned about also, just to add to the early detection piece, I've learned cameras in the FAA. There's a website, alertwest.live, and it catches a good area of Kauai. Areas from Apikoke, Makaha Ridge, down to Hanapepe, which is, between those 2 areas is really dry. And again, Chief talked about it before, early detection is huge. The faster we can get to a fire, the faster we can control it and getting out of control. So the early detection, everybody's buying in. We got, and then that cameras can reach also to the power line trail. And I won't talk too much of the specifics, but I think they have integrated AI technology to kind of give more precise information. But yeah, it's just nice to see all of the different organizations coming together and then being one mission. From the early detection to the response to what we do before and after. It's pretty cool to see. And then just to add to what Chief was saying, I was fortunate enough to be on that brush fire. I went out with a bench just to see. The response from the state, the state organizations as well as all the private, and just having an all-in attitude now towards brush fire response was so awesome.
Thank you for that. I'm really glad to hear that AI is doing something good for us, as terrifying as I think AI is generally. I love that it's doing something to benefit our community in particular. Thanks for using that really effectively in that. I did have a question as far as manpower goes. Does Kauai have a volunteer fire brigade, like a volunteer section?
No, we do not. No, I can talk about those programs. Those are really good in smaller communities, but across the United States, the firefighting, everything else around it has become so much more responsibilities. So we're doing pre-plans, investigations, school inspections, checks. So there's a lot of work during the day, and plus the continual training that it just becomes a full-time job. It's really valuable, the volunteer in some areas, but here there's just so many other duties required that it makes more sense to have full-time.
I understand. Yeah. Thank you. Turn you're muted, love.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I want to switch gears. I just literally got back from visiting Yosemite National Park. And as we remember, Yosemite had some pretty significant fires not over long. And so I was paying particular attention to those blackened areas as we entered into the park. But also what I noticed was the power line trails in a lot of different areas and how meticulously maintained they are. In very clear, I don't know what the requirements for power line trails are, but you could see, they look like ski slopes. You could see them in the distance in all different areas. And so I'm going to send this question to Beth. As far as the mitigation framework, maybe you can talk a little bit about the power line trails, because I know when I come home to Koloa, I can see off to the right there that there's a nicely cleared power line trail. Who's responsible for keeping those clear? That's kind of always been a question. Are all of our power line trails maintained in such lovely order? And then specifically, I know you've got now, I don't know if this is post Lahaina or before, but this power down process that you guys go through when there is the red alerts, and how do you come to that determination? Who's impacted, and what about people with medical equipment at home? So sorry, there's a few different questions in there, but Beth, I'll turn that to you.
Okay, sure. You mentioned power line trails. I mean, the majority of our power lines actually run along like county rights of way, along our streets and roads and things like that. In general, KIUC, we need to keep areas around our power infrastructure clear, mainly for us that involves keeping trees off of lines. That's the majority of our activities up high where the lines are. Down at the bottom, of the pole, as we know, can cause problems if a power line falls and is live and sparks a fire. In general, the landowner should be responsible for keeping that area clear and cut and trimmed. But that doesn't always happen, as we know. I think there's definitely a much heightened awareness now. I know the State Department of Transportation, the County Public Works Department, Department of Hawaiian Homelands have been paying a lot of attention since last August to keeping their areas, and in particular where our rights of way are, keeping those better maintained. But it's just a continual problem. And I think that, unfortunately, if you're going to leave it, if a landowner is going to leave it to the utility to do that work, well, who's going to pay for that? Our members. That's not really fair to the membership for us to have to, devote. It's very, very expensive to maintain vegetation. So, it's got to be a joint effort to for everybody keeping their own vegetation clear as much as possible. But it's a constant worry and a constant challenge. We have been using drone technology in the past this year, both in Kapa'a Wailua as a pilot, and now we also covered the entire west side from Koloa all the way out west, using drone technology to look at a number of things on our poles, from the pole itself, the transformers and insulators that are attached, to even down below, where is the vegetation significantly overgrown. And so we have great data now from this work that shows us the areas where even vegetation is a problem, so that we can start addressing those in priority order. The last thing we want to do is cut power. I mean, that is huge. It sounds simple, but once you do it, we de-energize a line and members are out, you do not just flip a switch and turn it back on. I mean, we have to go out and patrol the line to make sure everything is safe. We're talking could be days, right? So if we have to do it to protect life and property, we will. And we do. We're going to be taking into account everything that's happening in the moment to decide if there is a significant enough risk to life and property that we do need to do what our chief of operations calls power isolation, which would be potentially, de-energizing a section. We did do that last year in September, I think it was. There was a red flag warning, and we de-energized lines up to Kokee, and also some lines going down to Mahalapu in areas where we thought fire risk was significant. Luckily, those areas impact a relatively few amount of individuals, but at the time and I really want to thank the chief for their work on the weather sensors. That's super important. KIUC has also deployed Tempest is the name of the manufacturer of these weather sensors, and we've deployed some on our infrastructure just so we have greater situational awareness of weather conditions here on Kauai. There really was very little prior to last summer. And, when the National Weather Service looks at red flag warnings, they're taking readings from Honolulu Airport and treating all areas of the state the same based on whatever they're seeing at Honolulu Airport. So being able to have that real-time information so that we know what's happening on the ground, and we know actually, yes, we are going to have to de-energize a line. It's just so much more helpful than having to do blanket actions that have serious impacts, because there's a cascading effect of when you cut power to an entire town, you are just really impacting people who, now schools are closed, hospitals have to make sure that they have backup power, community centers aren't available, sheltering, it's just this huge cascading effect that can really impact especially those that are most in need in our community. We've talked about this Jill, you've got people who are working 2-3 jobs and now their kids can't go to school because we've cut off power to Waimea, for example. And it's got to be a very thoughtful approach, and thankfully we're investing in technology. Great to hear fire department testing and investing in technology that's going to help us make the best decisions.
Thanks, Beth. Gosh, you guys really, KFD and KIUC, are so positively interwoven. It's good to hear the collaborative work and the similar technologies being deployed. And Chief or either one of you that would like to respond, what is the scope of your ability to hold us accountable as individuals as it relates to vegetation management? And you guys are looking at each other like, who's going to take this question?
Thank you. Well, first, let me acknowledge Beth and how you said, Jill, about us kind of doing the same things and working together. I think we do that greatly, and we do owe that in large part to KEMA, Elton, Saul, and their staff. They are such I want to say, robust in the work they do. They might not have the most number of people, but they have people that do an incredible job of bringing all of us together, all the entities across the island, the state, all our county departments, public works. I'm drifting off from the question, but I just want to tell you that there's some great infrastructure here and some great emergency management folks, that are our nucleus for all this stuff. So getting back to the question, our concern is really 30 to 100 feet from a structure, from the building structures. And that's where we have, if that's what the question was, the enforcement of having the landowner, homeowner, the responsible person from maintaining that hazardous vegetation, right? We look at the island and you see thousands of acres and if not miles of brush. And we cannot control all of that. We want that 30 to 100 feet from a structure, because if that vegetation is on fire, that gives us a zone to work in and come put out the fire. Now you're thinking, well, what about the winds, right? It's going to move the fire faster, and it is. But you got to realize in those high wind events, when it's 40 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour and above, it's going to take embers the size of golf ball or baseball, and this is not to scare everybody, but it'll carry those embers up for a mile burning. So it is hard for us to control the entire island, easier to control the land that's around each structure. And I'll pass to Kaigo.
Chief, that was awesome.
Oh, and you've got to unmute yourself there. Quick draw.
Yes. Well, and also the 30 to 100 feet, they're based on research. They're based on, you can find these. So 0 from a structure to 30 feet is what Hawaii Wildland Management Organization calls Zone 1, which is the immediate defensible space around your home. Super important, that zone, not only for the radiant heat, or which we call fire, the actual fire hitting your home, but more importantly, the fire embers. So what the embers will do is they'll come and light the combustibles around your home. So for us, that's our immediate concern. 0 to 30 feet. We want you to have that clear of combustibles. Then it moves out to 100 feet, in which is zone 2, 30 to 100 feet. And those fuels we call the ladder fuels. So those fuels can ladder to that immediate 1 zone. So you can talk about short, dry grass is slowly creeping their way on the bottom, or those big trees that going tree to tree to tree to the immediate 30 feet around your home. And again, our goal is not to be black and white. I mean, we have to use our fire knowledge. We have to use our fire response capabilities to be, okay, this hazard, there's a chance for us to put it out, giving the locations from a station to the type of brush it is, versus, again, we're taking into consideration the height of the brush, the combustibility of a brush, and holly coal or guinea grass, which is our public enemy number one. Whether it's dry or green, that's another consideration as well. So we try to put some knowledge to the numbers and make sure we are analyzing or assessing the hazard correctly.
So if you've got a neighborhood, like we have many neighborhoods that have homes that are close together, that may not have that 30 to 100 feet between the structures themselves, what responsibilities or how do you navigate that? Is that just a between neighbor and you hope everybody's friendly and kind of does the right thing? Or if one neighbor feels threatened by another neighbor's lack of vegetation management, I mean, how do you do that?
Great question. As of now, the way we look at a property like that in a residential area, it's you have a duty to not put your neighbor at risk. And so if, for example, you have uncontrolled guinea grass that is encroaching your neighbor within 30 feet, we can look at that and say, hey, you need to take care of that hazard that is in. Does that make sense? I can clarify more, but it's basically you have a duty to protect and not harm your neighbor or anybody else in the neighborhood. So
I would love to summarize that by just saying, be cool.
Yeah. No.
Like the quotable there is, you have a duty to not put your neighbor at risk. I even wrote it down. Just be cool, man. You know?
Yeah. And sometimes, yeah. And for the most part, people are responsive, especially since post Lahaina. And sometimes there's some small cases too that just people are not responsive for whatever reason. Things within their control, things that that are not in their control, and sometimes many reasons, right? I mean, you can imagine you dealing with various segments of the human population. So, I mean, I'll just leave it at that. But
yeah, you're right. Most people want to cooperate. They want to.
Most people want to, and most people are too. But yes.
I want to take a quick station break right now and let our listeners know that you are listening to Kauai Community Radio. It's KKCR Hanalei, KAQA Kilauea, and this show is called Stay Safe Kauai. And I do have one quick message for us to play.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the speaker and do not necessarily represent those of KKCR staff, board, members, volunteers, or underwriters.
That's right. Thank you for listening to Kauai Community Radio, and you are tuned into Stay Safe Kauai, a show that is monthly, the third Friday morning of every month, that we talk about hazard mitigation, staying safe, emergency management, disaster recovery, the things that we personally can do to keep our island safe and more habitable during harsh weather or other conditions. And we get to talk to experts in their field. And today we have representatives from the Kauai Fire Department, Chief Gibson and Kaeo Kinoshita. And we also have Beth Amaro from KIUC. And the show, again, is hosted by Jill Lowry from the Kauai Resilience Center and myself, Annie. Let's get back to it.
So let's switch back over to KIUC. Beth, I know, kind of going back to the power lines, you guys test power lines, right? And what does that entail, and why do you do it? And for people that live near power lines or have them near their home or neighborhood, you know, there's different kinds of lines. There's cable, there's electric, there's all different kinds. How do you tell? And if they start to droop, who calls who? So kind of lobbing the power poles over to you.
Okay. Yeah, our infrastructure, luckily, back in maybe 2012, we installed an AMI system, which is, basically high technology on all of our lines and our meters that give us lots of real-time information about what's happening on the system. So if there's a fault, if there's an outage, we are alerted immediately. We have, a lot of information about where exactly the problem is, maybe not the exact pinpointed location, but a basic span of line where we know it's this span of line where the problem is occurring. That AMI is invaluable to us in being more efficient and more precise in responding and getting power back up. That being said, we really appreciate when members, if they see something that they think is not right, if maybe a power line is drooping or a tree is precariously close to the line or the pole is leaning, we really appreciate when our members tell us about that. And the best thing you can do is take a picture of what you're looking at and, give us as many specifics as you can about where it's located. If there's a pole, there's a yellow metal pole number that's affixed to the pole. If you can tell us what the pole number is, that is really helpful to us. Now, that being said, on our poles, not all of the lines are ours. So if you look at utility poles, they're not much to look at, so you probably don't very often. But the lines that are affixed lower on the pole, they're generally kind of big, thicker, black lines. Those are communications telecom lines. Those, if a branch hits those, it's not necessarily going to knock out your cell service or your cable. And they're not going to create a huge safety issue. But if you see our lines, which are at the top of the pole, generally they're thinner, they're silver. Those lines are highly sensitive. They're energized. They're very dangerous if they come down. So we don't want that to happen. If a tree is threatening that line, it could cause an outage. If it hits, could bring the pole down. I mean, those are very serious issues that we want to know about. So please call us. If it's during business hours, you can call us. You could email us. A picture is really helpful. A lot of people
number we can call. What is the number? The number,
sure. The number is 808, of course, 246-4300. So during business hours, we have our call center that will pick up those calls. But even after business hours, they'll automatically go to the power plant in Port Allen. So we still, we'll still take the call, and the guys out there will deal with the issue as best they can. So yeah, 246-4300 is the number to call. And then you also could email us, if I can give the email address. That's okay. It's info at KIUC.coop. So we love to receive emails, especially with pictures. And a lot of people will actually messenger us through Facebook Messenger, which is fine. We have our communications team, which consists of myself, Allison Young, and Shelley Pike. We're monitoring Facebook 24/7. And so every now and then we'll get something through Facebook Messenger, which is just fine as well. And we'll just pass that on to our folks. But yeah, we've got, many, many miles of line that we are responsible for. For the most part, if everything is good, we know it. If something goes wrong because of our automated systems, we know what's wrong, and we can diagnose it, fairly quickly, which is great. One thing I wanted to mention, Jill, is one of the other tools that we have, aside from just de-energizing a line completely, is settings on these lines that in normal conditions, we like to set them so that they try to, if there's a fault and the circuit opens on the line, we want to try to avoid an outage if it's not necessary. So that line is normally set to try to reclose automatically on itself. So it'll try up to 3 times just automatically based on system settings. Many times, that doesn't even become an outage because it automatically recloses and we're fine. It was maybe just a tick on the line from a branch that didn't cause a full outage. But the problem comes in if there's windy conditions, it's dry, something significant happens, like the line comes down onto the ground and then it's trying to automatically reclose, that could create a spark and create a fire. So when we know that there are dangerous conditions, we will set those lines into much more sensitive settings. So if it opens, it will not reclose. That creates an outage for sure. And we won't restore power until someone goes out and looks at it and makes sure it's safe. So the sensitive settings are great from a safety perspective. They're not really great from a member perspective, and not losing power. But it's a very important tool that we have that we will use probably more often than fully de-energizing a circuit, because that'll at least protect, if the line is coming down, it's not going to try to reclose. The line will come down, it's dead. It's not going to spark a fire. So that's an important tool that we have in our toolkit going forward.
Okay. Beth, in the time that I've known you, I've learned so much about power that I did not know before. And it's awesome because I really was not aware of all the technology that goes into what you just described and keeping people safe. And I know there is more focus than ever post Lahaina, which is a good thing. If there's anything good coming out of a tragedy, it's doing better the next time around. But thank you for doing what you do. You've always been a very passionate advocate for KIUC. I'm gonna take it to KFD, but when I come back, the next question I'd like you to respond to, if you could, is energy storage, because I know that's something that's being discussed in the backup storage, and so you can be thinking about that question when we come back here. But KFD guys, because KKCR and Kauai Resilience Center is on the North Shore, I'm going to kind of ask you a North Shore specific question. I know a lot of people feel that because Northside's greener, it's not ever going to burn. And so I'd like you guys to maybe address the reality of that. And you did a little bit with the flying embers, because a house fire can create a situation with those embers flying into some albesia or what have you. But the second part of that question, I want to take us away from fire for just a minute, because you guys deserve huge kudos. Fire is not the only thing that you respond to. So the North Shore, I know, is a little bit sensitive in the sense that it's quite a distance from the Hanalei station to Kaikea, and maybe you could also just let our listeners know what is in your wheelhouse of the things that you do respond to. Take it away.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Jill. So Hanalei area, so that's our Hanalei Fire Station, Station 1. And if we're just talking about fires, so all fires, vehicle fires, brush fires, structure fires, we have as many, if not more, in that area than we do other areas on the island. So in a 1 year period, in Hanalei had 60 fires last year, whereas Kapaa had 77, and then over on west side, Hanapepe 35 and Waimea 36. So the fires are everywhere. And just to reiterate the point that Captain Kinoshita stated, is that the area around your house is the most critical. If you look at when we all build a campfire, you put the big logs in the middle, and you can't just light that big log, and that big log is your house. Harder to light, it takes a while to get it going. But if you surround that log or your house with small bushes, debris, trash, stuff starts accumulating up, and those embers blow in, it's going to start the kindling. And in the case of, you think of the big Lahaina fire, the big wave of fire is moving through, that's going to move through. But this stuff that's going to remain on fire is that kindling. So the less kindling you have around your house, the safer that you're going to be. And think about general we call it the home hardening, which is meaning, check your roof. If, you're surrounded by trees, that's, hose down the roof, or, get the pine needles and the dead leaves off of the roof. They collect in the rain gutters. Let's get those out. Screens on the windows so we can keep the embers from flying inside the house. And there's just that general maintenance. So the other stuff that we do, we're all hazards response. So we respond from not only to fires, but to vehicle collisions, ocean rescues, trail rescues, medical responses. American Medical Response, AMR, is the advanced life support provider on the island. They provide the paramedic services and the advanced life-saving services. We support them with our training. We're also, heavily engaged, as I said, those full-time responsibilities, or we do a lot of pre-planning. So the firefighters are out looking at buildings as they're under construction, familiarizing themselves with the layouts in case they have to go somewhere at 3 a.m, 4 a.m. when it's dark, so they know the property. They know how to get in the building. They know where the hazards are stored. If it's a shop that's using specific chemicals or flammable liquids. And pass it to Kaeo. Did I drift off the question, Jill? Okay.
No, you're all good. I think you summarized very well. The last question I'm going to let you think about before we close. We're getting closer to that time period, but I want to ask one other question just because I'm going to go to Beth and then come back to you for the final one, is about the 4th of July. Because in the space of a year, we went from, a lot of people love their fireworks and, there's always those around. But last year was off the chart. I mean, insane commercial grade, illegally imported fireworks that is just terrifying to stand out in my front yard and there's 360 degrees worth of fireworks that didn't used to be there. And so I want to come back to you at some point and see if you can respond to, is there anything being done about that? What's your purview in that as far as, I don't think that there appears to be any real legal ramifications there, but hopefully I'm wrong. But so be thinking about that. And Beth, coming back to you, whether it's related to hurricanes or anything, obviously backup energy is super important. And I know you've got the solar farms that are also helpful, but batteries and all the stuff that's needed to go along with that. Could you give an update on that? And then I have one other solar farm question that somebody posed to me, and I said I would ask is, there is concerns that were shared about in a hurricane with those solar units that they become debris, and how do you deal with all of that? And so I'm just throwing that out as a side question to you. So to you. Thanks, Beth.
Okay, thanks. I think so. I want to talk a little bit about backup power, not necessarily from the utility perspective, but from the personal perspective. And we do have a lot of members who have solar rooftop systems, and many of them in recent years have been adding a battery backup system like a Tesla Powerwall, which is very, very helpful to ride out an outage situation. And we're glad that they have that, and that some of our members will not be significantly inconvenienced. But we do have many others who cannot afford those types of systems. They maybe they rent their home and they don't own it, so they can't just put something in. And we're mostly concerned about folks who are elderly, folks who are dependent on medical equipment that runs on electricity. It's important for people in those situations to have a backup plan, because we cannot guarantee that you won't lose power at some point. We also want to know who you are. So there is a way to register yourself with us. Let us know that you are dependent on medical equipment that needs electricity. You can call the number we talked about earlier. Let us know. There's a form to fill out, and you do need a physician's acknowledgement of that to get on this list. But we do maintain this list, and so, for example, when we had to do the red flag warning last summer, that's a very short time to prepare. We don't find out that's going to happen until maybe 24. It's 24 hours ahead, and we have just found out. So we did take the members that were in those areas who had registered with us and make sure that we called or emailed or somehow let them know that they could lose power in the next 24 hours. But it's really, really important to have a home plan. And I know that there are, power storage devices that are available. We're kind of looking into maybe a new rebate program where we would help pay for those types of devices for folks who are on our list, so that they would at least have some backup if they do lose power. But energy storage is really important in so many ways, going from that granular level of, the person in their home who has an outage and needs electricity for life-saving purposes, to the grid, right, to be able to store bulk energy, and for a number of reasons, including to stop using fossil fuel. So that's our big challenge right now in getting to 100% renewable is installing new energy storage technologies, and so that we can shave off all of that overnight fossil fuel use in the coming years. But so we are working on that. And energy storage helps us, ride through events when, power goes out for any number of reasons. Is there anything I missed there, Jill?
No, you did great. Thanks for letting us know. Annie, how much time do we have? And I want to be able to, I did do the 4th of July question to KFD, but I also want to give space to both sides to close with any thoughts that they would like to.
We've got about 10 more minutes in this hour, but we do have another hour that you and I can talk briefly after this too. And I want to respect the time of our guests as well, but we've got 10 more minutes in this hour that we can continue on. And I have a brief question coming back to the North Shore question, if anyone wants it.
Yes.
During the Lahaina fires, the siren did not go off because we know that sirens are for tsunami warnings. And I know that the gentleman that was in charge of that response took a lot of heat for that. And I wonder how important, should we listen to sirens for fire warnings or not? Or is it just for tsunamis? How important is that siren for us?
Yes. So I do not want to steal KEMA's messaging. I think it would be great to have them come on to really discuss that. We have alternate methods in KEMA. So besides the sirens, we have, I will get the acronyms wrong, but we could send out the messaging through the cell phones. So if you have your cell phone and you're in an area that has a cell tower, which we know there's some areas that do not have them, we're going to get that messaging out quickly by the cell phone. I mean, pretty much everybody on this call or listening probably got the message about a missile was coming. And for as popular as that message is, that's how effective that is. So if we need to get that message out, or KEMA does, you're going to hear it. If you got the missile warning, which we shouldn't say this on the radio, if you tune in right now, you're going to capture it at a bad time, but those systems do work. So that'd be a great subject to bring them on, and they're great at that. But back to the 4th of July question. Our avenue and the fire department here is the public service announcements. So we don't want those fireworks coming in. There's not a fire chief that's in support of fireworks anywhere except those that are done at maybe Vedina Stadium or the ocean. We want those safe, controlled shows. We would love for people to go in those environments and not be lighting them in the backyards and their neighborhoods. It's not just the fire concerns, the loud noises. It affects people in different ways when they hear those sounds. We all know it affects our pets, and it's just dangerous. One of the things that happened this year at the state legislature was the approval to again appoint a fire marshal for the state of Hawaii. That fire marshal is going to be able to help enforcement of those illegal fireworks coming in and work with the ports and authorities of inspecting containers, which they've been semi-successful last year. There was quite a few seizures of illegal fireworks coming in. We could use more. I just read one report the other day that on this past New Year's Eve in Honolulu, in about a 1 hour period, they had 34 separate fires related to illegal fireworks. So what we'll do on our island is we'll get messaging out that let's go to the safe and official commercial fireworks displays and really have to refrain from the illegal and those dangerous fireworks that can cause so much harm. Yeah.
Please send me those messages to KKCR. I would love to play them. My dog would love to play them too.
On that note, too, just something for people to do for homework. If you Google fireworks and wildlife, it severely impacts not only wildlife but our ocean life as well. Those huge sounds, and it can totally disrupt their lives in a very negative way. So it's not just our dogs and our cats, but it's all of our wildlife, which pretty much everybody on Kauai, I think, is very protective over. So it's another level of responsibility that I think is missing in the messaging a little bit, and that might matter to some people maybe when the neighbors don't. So closing thoughts or anything you want to share, any phone numbers, anything at all. This is why we're here, is for you guys to have a platform to share to our listeners. And Annie, anything you want to ask too?
I just would love the closing comments, and to reiterate the telephone numbers for KIUC. If you see something, say something, and those numbers are 246-4300, and that is, you can call in with anything that you see that is wrong around your home, in your neighborhood, or it's like there might be something off about this power pole. And you can email photographs to info@kiuc.coop, and you can also peruse their website to see about plans and about things that KIUC is doing to protect us in the event of emergencies. So any closing thoughts?
Thank you for that, Annie.
Sure.
Really appreciate you spreading that out there. We'll put you on our news release list too, if you don't mind. I'll add your email to that so that you get all of our releases. But the other thing is if following our social media channels, we do, especially for outages and in emergency situations, that's the best way for us to push out information. And even if you don't have a social media account, on the homepage of our website, we do our Facebook feed is visible. So social media is a really critical way that we try to keep members informed.
Yeah, and you guys are very good at it too. Thank you. I follow you guys. Thanks. And then I would like to compliment to Kauai Fire Department, whoever takes the photographs when you guys respond to events is great. Thank you for that. Please compliment them on my behalf.
No, will do. And our website at kauai.gov Fire Department, you land on our page and you can look at all the things we talked about. So as far as protecting your home, there's tips on wildfire drought lookout, the wildfire preparedness tips. And there's also a link to a great organization, nonprofit, the Hawaii Wildfire Management Organization. They have been leaders on advocacy. They can help neighborhoods establish fire-wise communities and really do that grassroots to teach each neighborhood, each homeowner from their house, doing that good stewardship. And it becomes contagious. The neighborhoods have become involved. They brag about their neighborhood, then the next street wants to do it, and the next street. So you can find all that information on our website.
That is great. Thank you. Jill, closing thoughts? Or
No, I just, for being a small island that we are, I want to give a shout out to KPD, KFD, Kauai Search and Rescue, KIUC, AMR. I mean, everybody that works here, despite workforce challenges and finance challenges. I mean, there's an immense amount of dedicated people on this island that works overtime, puts their life on the line. And, I have to refer to Sukanoho, bless her heart. She's very protective, obviously married to a fireman, about, silly things that we do that puts our first responders in jeopardy. That's a responsibility of all of us and our visitors too. But I think, honestly, of all the places that I've lived, and this is the only island that I've lived on, but this community rocks as far as first responders and people that care about the people. So I just want to, Annie, for you and I to just give a major shout out to and this applies to our emergency room, doctors. I mean, everybody that cares and protects life, because, if we lose our life, it's game over. So everybody that dedicates themselves to that, a big mahalo.
Agreed. Thank you so much for mentioning all of that. And thank you to Beth from KIUC, Chief Gibson, and Kaeo Kinoshito. Goodness, I wrote you down. For joining us here on Stay Safe Kauai, and I look forward to having you on the radio in the future too. KKCR is very passionate about emergency messaging and disaster recovery, and putting the correct information about how our citizens can really protect themselves on the air. I took several emergency management classes at UH, and so I'm very passionate about doing that. So do look to KKCR when it comes to emergency management and messaging. Part of our responsibility is, when we get those warnings, is to read the warning every 15 minutes so that listeners can hear them over and over again. So thank you for that. That's important, Annie, to say that, because things change quickly in situations. So, alrighty. Thank you very much. Awesome. Thank you for joining us. And you can hear the recording of this at kkcr.org on our special archives page. That will be up there until the world ends. And you can also see this recording of our Zoom, and you can see our faces, and that'll be up in a few weeks at the Kauai Resilience page. And the website for that is, Jill? Hopefully a week, yeah. KauaiResilience.org. KauaiResilience.org. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us today, and we will see you on the radio.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Jill. Thank you,
Mahalo.
Thank you. And you are listening to Kauai Community Radio. Thanks for tuning in. We just listened to Stay Safe Kauai. That is our monthly program that keeps us talking about safety issues, about disaster response and emergency management here on Kauai, and it's very important that we have this in our minds. So thank you for tuning in today, and I want to let you know that you are listening to Kauai Community Radio. It's KKCR Hanalei, KAQA Kilauea,